Hi folks, here today to talk to you about asset management, first-party data, and obviously tokenization and incentive design. Just a quick run through the itinerary. Unfortunately, I'm not going to have time to get into sort of the quantitative investment framework that is at the core of Delphia today. If you are interested in that material, you can follow up with me afterwards. I'm happy to send it to you. We're going to stay a little higher level. So this is the problem in a nutshell. The data economy is growing faster than GDP, and none of us are participating in that. And this is not about your data not being worth very much. My data is also not worth very much. It's about the data economy and the rate at which it's growing and the fact that we don't have any participation in it whatsoever. And I want to explain how we can. So if we sort of zoom in and take one subset of that economy, the asset management space and the alternative data market, that's growing at about 54%, sort of a compound annual growth rate of 54%. Which means by 2030, if you sort of average the data economy across each US person, that's about $31,000. So what's Delphia? Well, Delphia is here to inspire and enable people to invest their data, which again is different than selling their data. And the reason we need to invest it is because what matters with data is the data set, and therefore the collective, or the DAO. What we're trying to do here, the game effectively, is to turn data into a set of investment rights, investment capital, and ultimately alpha. And I mentioned at the outset, we begin with this world-class quantitative framework. And this is not a case of a technology company entering the asset management space, but actually the reverse. So our team are sort of veterans of systematic asset management, including my partner, our CIO, Jonathan Briggs, who created the foundations of this idea across 10 years at CPPIB, where he was the managing director of the Quant Equity Group. Others on our team are former research directors from Cubist, the global head of research from Rayliant, et cetera. This is the case of the asset management industry coming around to crypto primitives and first-party data. What is going to be unique and what is going to be strange is we have this alpha, but we actually partition it across different audiences. And this is usually a conversation starter. So we have a particular implementation of the alpha, a long-short, market-neutral hedge fund that folks in this room are able to participate in, but we also make that alpha available on top of a benchmark like the S&P 500 for a retail audience. And with that audience, we don't charge them fees. Instead, we say, please contribute your data, connect whatever apps you feel comfortable connecting on your phone, and we will only use that data to improve this alpha. So we have these two different stakeholder groups, each with a role to play, one paying fees, one paying with data. And the idea here is that we're going to use this sort of modeling advantage to bootstrap this data set. And that data set is going to allow us to go from one alpha to many. So today we start with a systematic strategy that forecasts the fundamentals of 3,000 US equities and maps that back to returns across 7 different horizons. We stay orthogonal to things like value, quality, and momentum, because what we're trying to do is forecast the fundamentals of companies rather than using machine learning to directly predict price. I'll do a quick little aside. The state of quant to date, or historically, has been about using ML to predict price because you have a lot of observations, you have a lot of training data. There's an observation of price every day. However, when you put that model into the field, and the reason why we had a quant winter a little while ago, is because inevitably the model will trip on something it's never seen before that happens to move price. Jonathan's big insight was to redirect the model to say, is there a variable more stable than price that's co-integrated with price? And it turns out those are fundamentals. And they pay out at different horizons and in different quantums depending on how many people are paying attention to them. As I mentioned, we also reinvest our fees into building this proprietary first-party panel, and we believe that's going to open us up to a platform-like future. I'll talk more about that in a minute. First, the performance of our long-short fund out of the gate. So we're 17 months in. We did 54% annualized returns, so that's 73% so far across those 17 months. That's net of fees. Sharpe ratio just shy of 4. You can see our correlations. We outperformed Millennium in 14 out of 17 months to date. And our inaugural year was one of the 5th best years all time for equity market neutral funds. So this is a robust framework. So this is my bet. My bet is that the next millennium will offer more than just capital and infrastructure. I believe it's going to be a requirement to offer first-party proprietary data as well. Tomorrow's alpha will be built on that nature of data. If you like business models, I can summarize ours in one slide. Here it is. We leverage today's performance into a base of AUM, hopefully from LPs who are interested in that platform-based future and who want to trade off at various times between their exposure to the long-short fund and the token. You can do that rotation anytime you like as risk-on or risk-off environments change. And Delphia itself is also an LP in that fund. We have a vested interest in seeing that data set grow as well. However, when we mint or create token from this bonding curve, we distribute all of our token to those contributing data on the retail side. So I mentioned splitting capacity or splitting this alpha is a really powerful sort of approach. 80% of the alternative data market is actually consumer data, and there's no first-party alignment there. And this isn't just sort of like an ethical problem. This is actually a forecasting problem. So if you think about it, you're buying all these time series, all these behavioral data sets, credit card, location, clickstream, et cetera. You're buying them all independently with no ability to join them to a common ID. Just that one piece right there, being able to ladder up to a common ID, is a big step forward in forecasting. But number two, we're entering a data portability future. If you're following the regulatory environment, Delphia doesn't build using APIs. We build using data access requests that platforms have to grant their users, which means we're able to get to LinkedIn data, Amazon purchase history, things like that. This is why alignment is truly a strategic advantage. So here's maybe a good representation. The last piece on the sort of the leftmost part of the slide there is we have a direct channel of communication to all these people contributing data. So we can ask you questions about yourself, the world around you, current events, and all of a sudden now we've got stated preferences to go with these behavioral revealed preferences, which again, big step forward in forecasting. So complicated slide, I'm going to just start on the right. On the right, those fintech products, that's our technology team's bet, that we can use the data being contributed by our investors, our retail investors that is, or whomever. We can use that data to build products and services that outcompete with the SoFis of the world, if you will. Because everything comes down to better prediction. That business could itself spin out IPO one day, but really the bet that the folks in the room are making right now is sort of that larger picture, that sort of the other 2/3. If you believe in what I'm telling you about first-party data and forecasting, then it stands to reason that any fund buying alternative data today will want to go where the data is better. Now, we're going to have to go and reacquire consent every time, but nevertheless, we believe that as a platform where even our quant fund becomes sort of a customer of that data and of those signals, we believe that by 2024, 2025, we will be competing on the world's largest levels. And Phi, the native token, which I'm going to give the room a sneak preview about today, PHI, this is effectively how you create, reveal, and discover signals in the data. So every LP that's part of our fund, or any one of our funds, has a decision to make. Is the data set optimally sized, rather? And if you don't believe it is, well, then you might want to trade off on LP interest in exchange for data. Because it stands to reason that a lot of us want that data set to grow and be enriched so that we can generate better signals, so that we can generate more AUM, et cetera, et cetera. And so every LP is able to, at any given moment, decide on the ratio between their LP interest and token exposure. You can go back and forth. There's a bit of a demo at the end. And so you can oscillate as the macro changes or what have you. But really, you're trying to decide if the data set is appropriately sized or if we're standing at a local maxima. And you never really know, because it could be that tomorrow a brand new app comes out, whole new stream of data, and from that data there might be a whole new set of opportunity. There's no reason why two developers in a garage 5-10 years from now can't run a model on our data in an attempt to build a better search engine. We can break out of asset management altogether into other lines of business. Signal generation with tokens is a very powerful idea. So we think of it in sort of two ways. We've got these, we call them curation games. because really it's about enriching the data set. And we bucket them in two ways. One is about better representation. These are panel-based curation games. You want better representation of the population, you want better representation of US equities. You effectively want to ensure you're allocating token in such a way that your sample is as representative as it can be of the thing you're trying to forecast. In fact, we believe each of you is an index. Each of you interacts with a series of companies that is revealed through your data, through your credit card data, through your social media, through your Robinhood holdings, whatever it might be. And by connecting all that, we're going to show you your index, and we're going to show you how that index performs. And then we're going to let others subscribe to you to reveal that index. These are powerful concepts. I think this is going to change the way people think about data forever. There are also market-based curation games. And what's really interesting here is that when you build a market as an end unto itself, it effectively is a security. But when you build it as a game, as a means to an end, a way to improve a managed portfolio writ large, that's very interesting, because the big knock on just take prediction markets. The big knock on prediction markets as games, for example, is that people don't have skin in the game, and therefore the signal's not very good. But what if their skin in the game is one level up? What if they're all a part of this investment strategy? All of a sudden, that signal starts to have a little bit of higher quality to it. As you accrue more token, you also accrue more rights. These will be familiar rights to you if you've ever invested in a hedge fund, multi-coin fund, what have you. Rights of first refusal, capacity, fees. Our approach to quantitative forecasting is going to become a huge paradigm shift in quant. We are forecasting the fundamentals, not price. That is a new idea. It's never been done at this level of scale. We have a cross-section of 3,000 equities. But we believe as the industry sort of adapts this framework, it's going to put emphasis on our relative forecasting edge, and therefore data will win the day. And so we invest in that readily out of the gate. Ultimately, from that data, we think we can enable a platform-based future, and that's probably the most exciting piece for us. So thank you very much for listening. I hope you enjoyed.